Recently, I noticed something kind of unique. So many different shows have remarkable 7th episodes, and my first question was why? Well, a big part of any story is making sure that the audience stays engaged. There are lots of structures and rules that people follow to maintain that engagement. For example, the 17-page rule, which argues that by the 17th minute of a screenplay, the inciting incident should have been introduced. It's not meant to be a concrete rule, it's meant to help prevent writers from spending too long setting up the conflict. But once an audience is hooked, writers have significantly more freedom to explore new and interesting ideas. And I think this is why we see so many great 6th and 7th episodes. My name is Pei, and today we're talking about when writers are finally free to do what they want. Originally, this video was made with the intention of discussing Dandadan's episode 7 and comparing it to Arcane season 2's episode 7. Both of which are not only outstanding, but also incredibly interesting in the ways that they broke away from the tone and expectations the show had set. But as I did more research on this episode 7 phenomena, I found that there isn't any secret remarkable correlation. A lot of great shows had an outstanding episode 6 or episode 8, but there were a lot that had a very special episode 7. So even though there isn't some absolute rule, I was shocked to find out that one of my favorite episodes of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Zuko Alone, is the 7th episode of the 2nd season. Or in the original Fullmetal Alchemist, the one I watched, episode 7 is when the Nina incident happens. One of Death Note's best received episodes is episode 7. If you've seen The Bear season 1, you remember that one really good episode? That was episode 7. What makes each of these so interesting to me, especially the two we're focusing on today, is not just the quality, but specifically the approach. They weren't just good, they were good in a way that felt really unique. And the reason I think this specifically exists is because by the 7th episode, it's the first time a writer has the opportunity to subvert the expectations they've set. Take Arcane season 2 for example. The 7th episode is a departure away from the tone that it's continued to engage in for most of the series. I struggled with lots of different parts of season 2 of Arcane, but overall I'm very glad that I still watched it because certain episodes and moments were outstanding, and this episode is at the top of that list. In this fantasy adventure that takes place in this huge complex world with dark, serious moments, Arcane dances around that in a way that almost feels like a bottle episode. We'll actually talk about those in a second, but this episode of Arcane, without getting into spoilers, was incredibly emotional, and it did it in a way that was almost inverse to the rest of the series. Arcane's a story about escalating conflict and trauma, a slow and consistent destruction of all these things that people love. But that's matched with this beautiful, admirable fight to protect all those things that the people do love. But then in episode 7, they step away from that, kind of participating in the inverse, this bittersweet and very wholesome story, highlighting that in another set of circumstance, with things playing out a different way, a sworn enemy could be the love of your life. Arcane is a story that talks a lot about revenge cycles and escalation of conflict, a consistent decline of stability, an incredibly flawed world where love shines through. But season 2 was jam-packed full of heavy and complex plot dynamics, one that many people criticized for having poor pacing, and in the middle they took a second to just step away, to return to a slow and delicate style of writing that was very reminiscent of the first season, subverting the expectations that they had set with the second. And that's really what I want to focus on today. A clever way of approaching storytelling, one that breaks from structure and algorithm, because when it's done well, it can be so satisfying. So you remember earlier when I brought up bottle episodes? I think they're a really cool example to explore of something very similar to what this 7th episode phenomena feels like. Bottle episodes exist as a form of budget saving. Running television shows, when they're over budget, will create bottle episodes to limit the amount of money they have to spend. The entire episode taking place on a singular, easy-to-build set, maybe with just a couple actors. Another cool example of limitations breeding creativity. If you want to save money, using a couple actors in one location can be very clever, but you have to have a good reason for why that is, and it needs to be entertaining. How do you do that? Well, maybe you take two characters who recently broke up and have them get stuck in an elevator together. And to make it more entertaining, while they're stuck, you have them go through all 7 stages of grief. I love when writers create clever and surprising circumstance for the characters to be in, and so often bottle episodes do just that. And a while back, because I love bottle episodes so much, I wanted to make a video analyzing them in anime, and found that they're really uncommon. Because saving budget looks very different in animation. More often, things get cut and assets get reused. Anime is also often adapted from manga, meaning that a lot of writing in anime is about filling in the gaps between panels, writing dialogue that feels consistent with the characters and provides more information and depth, not completely restructuring a story. There are some exceptions to that in anime, like Neon Genesis Evangelion, which had to come up with tons of clever solutions to the fact that they had an almost non-existent budget by the time they were coming up on finishing the series. But just because bottle episodes are rare in anime doesn't mean that writers aren't just as clever, and Dandadan has multiple great examples of this. Dandadan is a really weird show, especially given the fact that it's a wide appealing battle shonen. Are there weirder shows? Absolutely, but very few of those have had such a wide mainstream appeal. The last video I made about Dandadan praised its unique approach in an incredibly oversaturated subgenre of anime. And while I'm obviously going to talk about episode 7 in a second, let's start first with episode 5. After the first major arc and conflict is resolved, episode 5 did something that I didn't expect at all, especially from a show like Dandadan. It slowed everything down and lowered the stakes, moving away from its paranormal and extraterrestrial threats. It instead focused on the fallout, what happens when these two characters who just went through something so intense try to interact again at school. The entire time I was watching it, I wasn't completely sure I liked it yet, but I did. A lot. A really big part of the show is exploring the dynamic between the two main characters, and this episode sets that up and executes it really well. Not losing the fact that at the basis of this entire show doing well is making main characters that are a perfect mix between likable and flawed. At times it's a silly show, and this episode kind of highlights them talking about something important in a very silly way. But silly is not the term I would use to describe episode 7. Every once in a while, a piece of media comes along and tells a fantastic story in such a short period of time. I think Frierin's done it, I think Up has famously done it, and I think Dandadan did it, because this episode was heart-wrenching. Dandadan is a show that you can't take too seriously because it's such an absurd world built around an even more absurd premise. Its tone helps a lot because it broaches on some pretty serious topics. And while I'd be afraid for the show to switch up too much in tone, I don't think that's what happened here. It wasn't hurt at all by the change in approach. In stepping away from its normal humor, and in this episode taking itself extremely seriously, I think it demonstrates a certain level of respect to the topics it's kind of broaching. If you're not familiar with anime and you have any sensitivities, I'd really suggest checking out warnings before watching the show because it jumps all over the place in topic. In its opening episode, it does some pretty crazy shit. But also at this point, I'm going to be talking to people who have seen the show, so here's my spoiler warning. After 10 episodes, the average rating is just over 8.5. The 7th episode has a rating of 9.8, the next highest in the series being 9 even. And it kind of came out of nowhere, telling this tragic story of a mother doing everything that she can do to get by, only to lose her daughter and herself, before deeply attaching onto just a remnant of that feeling. This is where that subversion of expectations that writers have set comes back into play. They've created their own landscape to navigate, and holy shit, Dandadan's writer did an outstanding job with this. It's much needed substance in a show that sometimes shies away from taking itself too seriously. A classic case of if it wasn't done so well, it might have not worked at all. But I think this is actually a component that makes for a lot of great battle shonens, the ability to dip into the serious. Take Naruto, for example. When most fans think of their favorite moments, they're highly emotional and significant, mixed into a story that is just outstandingly entertaining. Like it or not, battle shonen is at the forefront of anime in the public eye. Because of its popularity, it dictates so much of the conversation around the medium. And Dandadan isn't the first battle shonen to come in with a hyper-stylized approach, but it feels rare to be this surprised by a show. It brings shocking, unexpected significance. And I know I'm not alone in that experience. It wasn't only good, it was good in a way that I never could expect. So let's try to understand why. So what differentiates Dandadan's episode 7 from something like Frierin's pilot or the early episodes of Madoka Magica? All three subvert expectations. The question is just, where do those expectations come from? Frieren focuses on trope and storytelling structure, targeting expectations that most people might not even realize they have. Madoka Magica does something similar, except in this situation using a red herring, whereas with these later episodes, when authors subvert expectations, they're working with those that they've established themselves. It allows for the opportunity to have major tonal shifts that still feel consistent with the story, because they can be built from the foundation of what the author's already established. Let's look at Dandadan as an example. Central to this type of story is its humor, especially when talking about serious topics. Take for example these scenes where Okurun is vulnerable and opens up to Momo. While the show is focusing on his very sincere insecurities, it also utilizes humor to make it more consumable. After sitting in this serious moment, the audience is then given an opportunity to come up for air through these funny, bickering scenes where the characters return to their original dynamic. Dandadan has tons of little sincere moments, but it rarely stays there for very long. Like that scene after the fight with Turbo Granny where Momo sees all the spirits that contributed to her existence as a yokai. Quick tangent, but the sound design for that scene is outstanding. And part of what differentiates episode 7 is that they subvert this show's humor by embracing a very serious tone and staying there for almost the entire episode. Not only in the entire tragic story that they explore in the yokai's origin, but also that moment where Aira is on the verge of death. This entire episode also serves so many different purposes. It introduces a new character, gives us exposition on her backstory, expands the magic system, and dances around fantastic conflict. But those all fall into the back seat of what the primary purpose of the episode is, which is an intense emotional resonance. Something I've said in the past is that good exposition often goes unnoticed. How well can the author hide exposition that's important for understanding the story in things that are fun and enjoyable to watch, like getting tricked into eating your broccoli because it's just delicious? And this is all built around components that were already introduced in the story, things like character, plot, and tone. I think the reason this episode 7 thing exists is because it's a good point in the story for writers to kind of flex their creative chops, to showcase their understanding of the world and characters and then explore them in new ways. I have no doubts that Dandadan will continue to be a weird show that's sometimes fantastic, but I'm really interested to see how much it dances around tone in the future. Dandadan is the hot new topic this season, and I think it's for a good reason.